As Vav, we're up to the very top of the page. That when the Mishnah said, "Bifnei about Pi'edim b'nei Chayrin u'b'nei Bris," is the main purpose of Pi'edim is we're not talking about that you were moide b'knas and then Edim came along, according to the opinion that says that that you are actually chayiv them, but rather it means to tell you that what kind of Edim are qualified only people who are free and people who are Eden. The mute, so b'nei chayid in the top of the page. B'nei chayid and the mute avodim comes to exclude avodim slaves, and b'nei bris lemute v'chav, and b'nei bris to exclude a guy cannot be an aid when it comes to the zikr. We need both. The iash mean an eved. If we only knew an eved, I would say, I cannot be qualified to be the aid. Remember, the eved's children don't belong to him; they go to the master, to the mistress. A guy does have yachas. So the Achrayim tried to work out what's the relevance of the yichus to do with Eidim. So the simple shot is, if he has yichus, then he's a family-minded person. He's stable, so he's more honest. So therefore, we would think that maybe you can trust his Eidim. A guy that has no family, has no roots, has no ground, nothing. Maybe you cannot trust him either. No. You know why guys not believe? He don't do with mitzvahs. Abel ever the shy mitzvahs, he's like the same thing as a woman. You need them both. Now, what's fascinating is the following. It says clearly you cannot have a goy. You can have a goy as an aid. So I was just double checking it out. So in the Mordechai and Gittin, remember we had a whole discussion of tests about koyishel bezin. If you have these shtaris, and we said that we made out that koyishel bezin the shtar is good because dinner ma'amashmul dinner ma'chus dinner even by matana. So there are some Rishonim that say that a goy can be believed as an aid, and they say as follows: why is a goy posel aidus? So these Rishonim say, why a goy is posel aidus? Because we can't trust them. Cannot trust them because they are not honest. There's no integrity. But if you know that this guy is a cheskes kashus, then 100% it can be an aid. That's the opinion of some Rishonim, which is quite fascinating. Other Rishonim say that no, that a goy. So the Mordechai himself argues. He says the goy is not trusted is because he's not. It says has to be among your brethren, and he's not amongst your brethren. Others say that that a goy, even if he's not, can be an aid, but you could be makabelim as an aid, and if you're makabelim as an aid, he has a full din of aiders you can trust, which is quite interesting. But the problem is the Gemara clearly says that a guy can't be an aid. So they want to say that this Gemara is limited to Nezikin. Because Rashi said before that Nezikin is a knas. And Tracy also, we're talking about knas, keren. And because Nezikin is and halach is a palganiska is knas, as we'll soon say. And because it's a knas, that's why a goy is not believed, because he doesn't have any dinim of knases. But if it's normal dinim, commercial things that a goy is also shaykh to, then a goy maybe could be an aid. And our Gemara is not talking about that. Okay, back to the Gemara. It says in the Mishnah, "Hanoshim b'chlal hanezik," that no chilik, a male or a female victim. It says the Gemara, "Menohan mili haritaka," know that a woman is the same thing. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, we have three psukim. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda's name, Rabbi Chetodia, b'shvolam because of the pasuk. Ish a isha, a man or a woman, kiyasu, if they will do mikol chatois adam. We're talking about a person again who had a pekatan and he swore. He said, "No, I never got it." He swore false. It turned out to be that he's made a that he's a liar, and then he has to bring a carbon asham for a kapara. So the pasuk says the ish oy isha kiyasim mikol chatois. If a man or woman does any aveda, hishva kos v'ishal isha chol isha b'tayim. When it comes to ancient, they're all the same. Now, Taisa gives a very important rule. The Torah generally was written in masculine form. But just because the Torah is in masculine form does not mean that it negates women. Women are excludes women. Women are definitely included. The only time we exclude women is when the Torah says ish. So once we have over here, we want it to be makish, that ancient. But Torah says ish or isha. But generally, kol Torah is written in the Lashon Zachar. Even though today it's not politically correct, you have to say they and change all the pronouns. That's how the Torah is written. Okay. That's one pasuk. Says the pasuk, these are the mishpatim that you should place before them. Before them. So normally we say lifneim, we learn out from here, below lifnei, it's talking about the dayanu. You should have to go Jewish judges. And actually said, Mishpat you're not allowed to go to a Goyish court, and it's a Chil Hashem, and hate him, the connect his motion, all that terrible, terrible things, but going to a Goyish court. Here we're saying Lifneim means the people who are coming to the court, not the Dayan, the people coming to the court. And Lifneim is what? Everybody. They're all the same, become Ish V'Teidah. And so Taisus then L'Chayda asks, since the pasuk is actually talking about the Dayanim, and whoever can be a Dayan can be an aid, and so on and so forth, and since a woman cannot be an aid, she cannot be a Dayan, so the pasuk is not talking about women here. So Taisus says, within the men, since the Shaykh to the Dayanis, we have a rule: whoever is Shaykh to be a Dayan, Shaykh to be an aid, whoever is Shaykh to be an aid, Shaykh to be a Dayan. If you're apostle to aid, you cannot be a Dayan. But it's not coming to exclude women. In that the rest of the pasuk Lifnei, when we're talking about in front of other people, we're talking about women as well. So Taisa brings up a very interesting thing, which is very controversial. What we learned from there, Taisa wants to know: so how is if a woman cannot be a dayan, how can a woman debated be a dayan? So Taisa here gives only one answer, but in Nida and Yavamas he gives a lot more. The Taisa over here answers simply. He says, what is it? Taisa answers. The makabel alehan. You're allowed to be makabel anybody you want as a dayan. In fact, Mishkan said you can be makabel a goy to be a dayan. Makabel anybody you want. So they're makabel debate as a dayan. But Taish in other places says a whole bunch of answers. But one of the answers is that she was telling them the dinim. She wasn't the dayan. She was paskening, and somebody else implemented the din. Comes along the chidah and says, based on that Taisus and based on a chinuch, where he says the same thing applies to men and women are allowed to be rabban. Because this whole thing about this whole controversy about a woman being not shayenas, but they have what do they call that? They show a maris, a rabban about shayenas, and they're also talking about nida. And some people, a lot of people are against it because they're not only just advising, but they're paskening. Chidah paskens go down in the Pispei Tshuva in Simon Zion in Chesed Mishpat that women are allowed to pasken. Based on that Taisus, that the Devadah was lahaydes. Otherwise, because according to the answer of Taisus that the Shechina, whatever was that the Shechina was talking through her, Tailah b'Shemaimi, was it helpful that she was talking through her or to Revius? Anyway, so an interesting thing. So another thing about ages. A woman cannot be an age. So the Rambam Paskins and the Rajba brought down the Shulchan Aruch a fascinating Ramah. In Simon Lamed Hey, the very last thing, brought down Shulchan Aruch that a woman cannot be an aid. Yeah, a woman cannot be an aid. As we learned, it can be a dime, but a woman cannot be an aid. He said, woman cannot be an aid. So the Rambam says, even in places where women don't hang around, no men hang around, for example, the Beis HaKnesset of Ezra's Noshim, but women can nevertheless, they cannot be an aid. Then comes along the certain poskim and says, but we made a special takana that where there are no men available, the mashal in the basic knesses of women. Another mashal is if we want to know what color outfit this woman was wearing, men don't notice what color outfits women wear. But you'll ask a woman, they'll tell you exactly what it is, what size it is, and what color it was, what material it was. Then we can use women as aidis. So it's a special takana that we can use women as aidis. The Ramah then goes further. He said there's two kinds of aidis. There's an aidis which is I'm about to make you lend you some money, so I want to have two aidim to stand there. You have to do it properly. There's another aidis which at the moment something happened and you can't prepare it. It happened. Somebody punched someone in the face. It happened, and the only one who was standing there was a woman. So the Ramah says they can be called in as aidis. They can be called in as aidis, but he adds a proviso, provided that the person, the victim, is saying bodily that was the guy who did it. Look, the person who the victim says, I'm not sure who did it, comes along a woman and says, that's the person, we're not going to accept it. But if the person says, you took him to court, you did this and this to me. So basically, it comes out from the Ramah. If it's an event that happened a split second, and the only person who was there, people were there, you two agents, or let's say were women, and the victim says bodily, you would accept women as aidis, which is a fascinating halacha. Not al sitin, sorry. As well, or he doesn't go to the flushes. He doesn't talk about the flushes. That's negate halacha. He's talking about the example he gives is if there's somebody that beats up a Talmud Chacham. That's why Dafka Talmud Chacham. I'm not sure. I guess you have to defend our brethren. So if somebody beats up a Talmud Chacham, or somebody's a Moser, those are 2 examples he gives, and a woman is there a split second. So there was a case there where 2 women came in and said they saw stolen items in this person's house. So the Rav wanted to paskin, you have to believe the women and then call this person in. But the Neighbor Bida says 2 things. First of all, the Ramos says clearly it has to be bodily. The victim doesn't know this in the guy's house, so you can't say bodily. The second thing is, in the guy's house is a constant thing. When do you believe women ate this? If it's a split second thing, there was something occurred, whatever it is, and they saw it. But if it's in the guy's house, other people can walk to the house and see it, whatever it is. So therefore, there we don't accept aid. Getting back to the goy, so there are some who say that Mahatoira a goy is really believed. The only reason why they're not believed is because we don't trust them as gazlanim. But if we know they're not a gazlan, then Mahatoira a goy can be believed, which is I was telling you that's some of the shayim. We say that's brought down a goy Sashri in Gittin. Oh, let's continue. That's pasuk number 2. Okay, then there's a third pasuk. Cross says is isha isha. It says in the pasuk that Rashay Nagar went ahead and killed a man or a woman, then you kill the shoy and so on and so forth. The victim makes no difference. The Yeshmin Kamaisa, which talks about bringing a carbon ashram kapara, Hasim with the Chasachman Allah Terachmanas. Why shouldn't she also have a kapara? Kehel Tevla kapara also needs a kapara. Abel Dinim, when it comes to Enil Mashpatim, which talks about the Dinim, commercial matters. Most women didn't go to work. Each the Barmasamat, the man who goes to work in Ishalai. In those days, women didn't work. Maybe they're not, it doesn't apply to them. The Yeshmin Dinim Kehel Tevla Yusuf. She wants to work. She should have. Nobody's going to deal with her if there's no law and justice. You need a court that she should also be under the umbrella of the judicial system. Abel kapara, but when it comes to kapara, we would say, look, each the bar mitzvah man who has all the mitzvahs in the Torah maybe needs the kapara more. Each of the bas mitzvah woman who has less mitzvahs, maybe she doesn't need. It's not so urgent to have a kapara for every aveda she does, because she has less chances to be nichshel. The Yashmin and these 2 those 2 reasons. But when it comes to being a victim of a shoy nagar, each the bar mitzvah, or let's say it says the haim is isha isha, and you pay then the what do you call it? The animal gets killed, and you pay kaifer, you pay the money for the family. So each the bar mitzvah, when you kill a man, we would have thought you just denied the Abish to 613 mitzvahs, maybe the shalom kaifer. Isha loy, but a woman has less mitzvahs, maybe you don't have to give a kaifer. The Yashmina kaifer shadiki ibn Nisham, the fact that he killed someone. Abel hanitad to leg ibn Nisham, maybe no. If you need all 3. Hanizik v'hamazir, the Mishnah says that sometimes the nizik has a shoulder part of the responsibility. Itmar we learned. Palgon niska. The fact that we pay only half of the damage, the first 3 times that a shirt gores, you pay half the damage because it's not a normal thing to do. Rav Papa says the minor. That's really then you have to pay it. And Rav Yehoshua, I'm like it's a penalty. I told you this last time, I think. Kadaina's Sefer, she put in the rhyme, which is supposed to be a very reliable Sefer, says that Al Rebbe once heard 2 literature people talking, saying that Al Rebbe is a Gon Olam, Mr. Magu is Gon Olam, but Hashem was a Pashto Yid. Why in the world would they follow Hashem? So he walked over to them and he said, the Machlek is Palganiska Moina, Palganiska Knosa. For 3 hours, he gave them a shir on just the opinion of Palganiska Moina, where it's coming from, and it went over the heads. And they said, no, that was only according to the Palgas and Mina. Now you're ready to hear Palgas and Knosa. And they said, we could hardly understand what you said there. He said, this is one of the shooting that my Rebbe the Maggid repeated to me from the Baal Shem Tov that he'd said to his Talmid. So now the Gemara says, in other words, Shavarim do have sometimes they gore. Sometimes. So according to Papa, that's sufficient to say that a Baal should have been wary of that, and he should have been aware. And therefore you're responsible. So min had the Baal you got to pay all of it. Rachmana the Chasel, tell that Rachmana, you know what? Because it didn't happen before, okay, we'll give you another chance, pay only half. Because his cow he wasn't warned about his cow yet. He hasn't proven yet that this is a habitual gore. Abu Nibashu says Kanasa. Somebody holds because it doesn't happen that often. That's considered as if the animal generally is well behaved. Over Dinu Dlosham Klal really shouldn't paying anything at all. It's like an abnormal thing. It's an accident. But Achmana the concept, it's a class. You should watch your cow. So therefore, we make you pay half. Tanan, our Mishnah says, the nizik shoulder is part of the payment. That means, minadin, the nizik should be getting more, but he's not. So he's totally part of the payment. So basically, the one says that it's mum and shemis. Minadin, he should get compensated for the entire animal that he lost. But the Taylor says no, you're only going to get half. So he's losing out. You hold palgis, which means minadin, you're entitled to nothing. So what do you mean he's shouldering part of the cost? He's getting at least half. You say he should be. What you're saying that he's missing out? He does lose out. He's entitled to half the money, but remember, he can get back the carcass, and if the carcass was devalued from the time of the damage to by the time he got to the court, he has to wear that. Okay, that's a loss. We learned in the before. We learned already the idea of chas nevela, where it says chafti b'tashlumi nezek. You already learned that. We know this concept. Why is the mission repeated again? Tashlumi nezek melama chabayim atapan nevela, that the bailim, the owner of the animal, has to be the one who has to take the carcass in, and he loses out if it is devalued. So Gemara says no. Chada b'tam. The previous mission is talking about an animal's a tam that he receives in a vela, and the chada b'mud. Here we're talking about a mud. Why do we need to tell you in both cases the nizik takes in the vela, and if it devalues, it's his loss? We need it. He didn't yet turn into a muad. But if a muad, a muloi. But I would say that by a muad, such a terrible thing. Why should the nizik have to lose a cent? Maybe then the mazik can't give the cock. At least the nizik shouldn't have to lose if it was devalued. You, the mazik, did a terrible thing. You 3 times already it happened, and you let it happen a 4th time. The Yashmin Muad by Muad. That the nizik has to wear some of the loss. He's getting the full payment, so a little bit you can lose. Abel Tam, he's only getting half. He's only getting half. Why should he lose more? Therefore, you need both. Toshma coming here, we're trying to prove whether that Papa is right or Yeshua. Tam pays half a nezik from its own body. No, but let's say if the victim's animal, let's say, is worth $500, so half the nezik to 50, but the man is only worth $100. You don't pay more than 100, even though it's far less than the chatzin because you pay migufi from the animal itself. But a muad, if let's say what he owes is more than the value of the animal, he has to pay from his properties. The imisa if that's why is that the only difference? There's another difference. At least a tam, since it's a knas, what we learned before, you're potter. So therefore, a tam does not pay if he goes along and he is made, doesn't pay. And a muad, if he's made, he has to pay because a muad is mammon. You have to pay. If you're made, you owe the money. You have to pay. But a tam is a knas. You don't have to. If pal is a knas. Everyone asks, and I can't remember what the answer is. When do we say that if made be knas potter, if it comes at a cost? By me being made be, for example, ganef, I'm made that I stole it. So I got to pay the $100 that I stole, and therefore I don't have to pay the second 100 the kefil because I'm the fact that I'm finding myself guilty and it comes at a cost means I'm saying the truth. But if over here, if he's made that my animal gored and gored, if made be knas potter, it costs him nothing. So where is it? So why is it knas?
It's detrimental to his neimanos.
That's about it. So they say the it's tick number 1. Remember, you have 3 strikes and then you're out. So that's strike 1. So it does come at a little bit of a cost, even though right at the moment it's only theory. Tana v'shaya. The other things will be missed out as well. The difference in Tamamud, there's no raya. She'll say there's no raya. For example, my shaya high shaya. What else? Shaya chatzi kofer. Now what? That by a muad you pay full kofer, and by a tam you don't pay any kofer if you kill somebody. So therefore, that's another difference. Says the Gemara, imashum chatzi kofer lav shuri. That's not a shir. Why? Because maybe Hamani basically maybe this basically holds that a tam does pay half a kofer. So there is no difference between a tam and a muad. Of course, there's a half and full, but that's the difference, half and whole. Toshma coming here, another Hamis Shaidi as plainy. My shoy killed that person. I showed plenty, or my shoy killed the shoy that person. Now, but if you kill a person, you have to pay kaifer. If you kill a shoy, you only pay for the shoy. He has to pay based on his testimony. Isn't that clear? That you're paying. You pay. You're talking about the tam as well, and you're moida and you're paying. Is that right? That it's not knas. It's mammon. So my lab, the tam is called about all cases, including tam. Who told you to my tam? So about muad, so it's mammon. So what do you want to ask? Abel tam, so what are you going to tell me if he would have been murdered by a tam? If you hold a palganistic knossa, if you say it's merely a penalty. So if I'm murdered, I pay nothing. So Aditoni sefer. Why does he then say in the sefer? But if he says, "Hey, Mishaidi is average if my shirt killed that person's Evid where there's a penalty because it's always fixed $30. Doesn't matter what the value of the Evid is. That's called a knas when it's fixed. Hey, Mishal Be'atz, if he's made a knas, he doesn't have to pay. Why introduce an Evid? Talk about the same case, but say the difference will be if it's the first 3 times or the 4th time. Leaf like with least but today make the distinction within itself. I'm not about only if the muad, then he's made, he has to pay. Abba Batam and Mishal Be'atz, we don't have to pay. So that's not a question. Kula b'muad kamaidi. This entire Mishnah is talking about a case of a muad, and therefore, what do you call it? That's why I don't introduce Tam here. But the difference will be if he killed an eved. Toshma coming here. This is the rule. If you ever pay more than what you damaged, it's a knas, and you don't pay if you're murder. My love, you only emphasize it if it's more than the amount. Whatever is less than the amount you have to pay. Mishalim, it's considered moment. The title need rachmanis in you. Isn't that a right to papa? Says, well, no. Oh, kamashi hizig mishalim. Be medaik, but if it's exactly the amount of damage you pay, that's called moment. Says the Gemara, if it's less, what's it in? You don't pay. If so, why does it say? Why is it stressed if you pay more than the amount? Just say if you did not pay the full amount. If you didn't pay the amount, I don't care which way it varies, whether it's less or more, it's a knas. Why Dafka emphasize be paid more than the amount? Adatoni, why instead of saying Zak Klal, this is the rule. If you end up paying more than the amount of the damage, you don't pay. At least they let it say Zak Klal. This is the rule. If you don't pay the full amount, any variation, the mashma pach is a mashma yasik. If you're paying less than the amount, which is the case of Keren, if you're paying Chatzi Nezik, that in fact is Mammon, and you would have to pay. Tiyufta. So Gemara uses the word tiyufta, which usually means repudiated. And then what do you think Rabbi says? Hilchasa palgas ikanasa. For Gemara, tiyufta v'hilchasa doesn't make sense. You just repudiated it from this. But I say every brought Reifman over here, and then you go ahead and you say that's halacha. Says Gemara in yes. Time am I have to. What bothered you? Like Tony, why doesn't it just say if you pay the exact amount, then that's mammon? Any variation of that is knas because it's not true. Not always. Like psikala, you can't make that rule. Even we learned in the Gimel Beis, the Ika Chatzi Nezek Tzreilis. If an animal is walking and pebbles go flying, Halacha L'Moshe Messina says that even though it's regal, you pay a half a Nezek.
But isn't that specific? Because that's Derech Yeluchai.
Yeah, but normally you pay Nezek Shalom. Here, with pebbles go flying and break something, that is Halacha L'Moshe Messina, you pay half. So there, it's Mammon. So the bride couldn't have said, but if you're paying less, that you always that you're what do you call it? You're potter, because not true. Depends what you're and they'll have to add a whole other clause. The hilchas in the middle of the memoinu. It's mammon. Like Tony, you don't learn it. Says the Gemara, hash that the amra palgas. Now that you mentioned it's a knas, if you want to be more aware. Hi kalba the achal imre. If a dog eats a sheep, which is very uncommon, v'shunra the achal tarnagayla, or a cat eats a chicken, mishunahi, it's totally not normal. So it's a knas. V'loi mishamtinale. Therefore, what do you call it? We do not collect it above. The rule is you don't collect knossos only in Etzisrael, and this would fall under Keren, and because it falls under Keren. Now, but if you're palganiskim and minor, which means that Keren does happen sometimes, and you should have been aware, and you pay. This is so abnormal. So which category would it be under? Therefore, you put it. But if you hold palganiska knossa, which we said before means because he holds is totally abnormal. So anything which is abnormal falls under Keren, even though it's not normal for a dog to eat a sheep, but it falls under Keren. Therefore, it's a knas. And a knas you don't collect in bubble. Aval bezutra. If let's say it would have been a small sheep or a small chicken, then urchiu, then it is common. And if it's common, so then what do you call it? It's common. So then the din is it's mammon. If it's common, then it could be in shen. It's eating. It's mammon. Then the Gemara says further, going back to the case which is uncommon, it's a knas, and in bubble we don't collect knas, but we eat toffers like mafkinade. Minadini has to pay, but we cannot collect the knas. But if the victim grabbed it, then it's all right. And we have a big machlekes at Abein Tam and the Rosh and others. Abein Tam says the only thing that you can grab is a mazik itself. In other words, the animal that came and damaged your animal, so you can go and grab that, Because that's caused the damage. But according to my time, you cannot grab anything else. Why not? Because then we have to assess what you grab. Is it worth more? Is it worth less? Then we have to have a dentator. But you can't, anything related to this knas is considered part of the knas dentator. We don't do knas. Says, I don't know what you're talking about. The knas is merely the payment. If this guy took an object, he has the right, the mazik can totally get caught in tiny that this is worth more than what the damage is. And that's not assessing anymore the knas. Now what we're assessing is you took more than what you're entitled to. So we're assessing how much money you stole or something, which is totally different than knas. And therefore you can. The Yama says, so I want to go just where they do judge knas. Even though normally the din is, I can take you somewhere else only if there's no bezin locally. Over here, it's like there's no bezin in Chutz Laretz, the only place in Israel. The if the other guy refuses to go, we put him in chedim. Well, side by side, the person who has an animal that goes and gores, we put him in chedim ad the mesalik hezek until he gets rid of the hezek. Everybody asks, so how do you ever have a muad? If the first time you put him in chedim for not doing it, so somehow or another, it must be that when do they put someone in chedim if it's totally abnormal? An animal goring, according to everybody, even if it's a knas, it does happen. So we don't put him in chedim. Just to be more aware, we pay a penalty. It's when a dog eats a sheep, which is abnormal completely, we say to the guy, you have no right to have such an animal in your midst. The time you learn, you shouldn't have a dog, a ra in your house. And so some of the poskim say you're not allowed to have a dog because if a dog barks and people get scared, that's considered already kelev ra. That's why Eden generally didn't have dogs. Till now, you come to Australia, every second person has. I don't know where it comes from. Nor should you have a ladder that's rickety in your house. You're not allowed to place obstacles in your house. There's machlekes poskim if there's a mitzvah of Micah also comes in here as well, because there's a negative that you shouldn't have stumbling blocks in your house, and there's a positive, put safeguards in. Is that every time you're able to susim dam beisecha, does it come with the mitzvah say of Sisa Micah, the gagecha, or Sisa Micah gagecha is strictly yigag and nothing to do with susim dam beisecha, which is a general rule.
The argument of Mammon is to make the person who was damaged whole.
Yeah.
Partially whole to give them because it wasn't your fault. Knas is like a deterrent. It's like you have to be more careful with your.
Yeah, but why? If I break your window, right, I have to pay you because I caused you a damage.
Yeah.
So why over here is it a knas? I should be paying you my animal damage. Animal. Yeah, that's what it is. I should be paying you for what you lost. Yeah. So why is it?
So you be more careful next
so you should be paying two payments then, a mammon and a knas.
It's a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, but the Taita. But every time you're mazik, forget about Keden. Forget about Keden. All other hazekis, it's mammon. There's no argument. If I pay the full amount, it's purely mammon. The only time we're having an argument when you're paying half the amount. So therefore, Rav Huna says a knas because it's like almost like an accident. But we now want you to be vigilant. Shouldn't happen ever again.
Right.
But because that's in your pot, it's an accident.
Right. So again, so you have to be more careful. It's
not
your fault.
You're right.
You don't have to pay the
but
whole
the other opinion is that you should have been aware in the first place. You're responsible for that mazik because you know that animals do that sometimes. They get into a frenzy, and an uncontrollable frenzy, and you have to. So you should have been. We don't treat it as an einus. Some of the achreim ask, and they remember to tzarichin, isn't this a machlekes a mitzias? Do animals gore or they don't gore? Others say no, they gore very seldom, but according to Papa, that's enough to say that you should have been more careful. And others, no. Next mission. Chamisha Tamin, Chamisha Modin, 5 cases of Tam, 5 cases of Muad. A behema ain't a mued a behema is not. In other words, you don't have to normally anticipate. Like ligach to gore, like ligach to sharpen the body, like loshich to chew, or like lirbach to throw itself on items, but give a good cup, a good kick. These are 5 cases of time. Even though Mefoshim ask, it's all really the same thing. Things which are not normal. Anyway, and what are the muadim? Hashen muedes lechos harola. Hashen is a muad to eat that which is normal to eat, food, whatever, not kelim. A regel mued lish boy b'derech and a regel generally walks in. Yeah, v'shoyd hamued and a shoyd hamued 3 times. V'shoyd hamazik b'shus hanizik. A shoyd causes damage in the reshus of the nizik. So in other words, that's a muad. So what do you mean it's a muad? You're paying full. So clearly this mission goes to tarfin. That the shoyd even the first time it goes and damages and trespasses in the victim's house, but you pay full price. And Adam, if a person causes damage, he pays full price. Then the Mishnah continues, Hazei, a wolf, a lion, even a bear, nem is a leopard, badless, we'll see in the Gemara tomorrow, polar cats, whatever they call big machlek is what it is. Hanochash and a snake, they are muad from the beginning. These are wild animals, they're not controllable. You can't, when we were in Caracas, in Shlichus there, a block away from us, there was a guy who had a pet tiger, and he was always in a cage. But when he went away, he used to travel a lot. He would let it loose in the garden, and we would hear it sometimes make noise. I'm telling you, it was pretty scary. I promise you, nobody broke into that house. Rabbi Lazar says, if you can domesticate them, he says it's possible to domesticate. Like you go to a zoo, you go to a circus, they can domesticate some of these animals. But the nachash, when it comes to a snake, everyone agrees that muad la'elam. Alligators, as we know what happened here. So Hashem muad is lechel miklal. It starts off saying Hashem is muad to eat. Where's Hashem responsible? Not Shus Rabbi, only Shus Nizik. Lechel miklal the bechatzer hanizik. We're talking about the bechatzer of the nizik. Uktani behema eine muedes l'shalom kuli. But a behema, the first case is he says it's a tam. In other words, we're talking about the same Shus in the trespassing in the victim's house, and yet a tam only pays half. So who's also the first part of the Mishnah? It's Rabban. The Amni Mashuna can Nizik can behaves differently in the Chatzar of the Nizik. There's no different where you are, you only pay half a Nizik. Then look further in the Mishnah, as I pointed out. You aim a safe. If you're trespassing, and a person, that follows Raptarfin. The Amar Mashuna Keren the Chatzar Nizik, if it can behave differently in the Chatzar and trespassing, Nizik Shalom Mushalom, pay the full amount. Reisha Rabban of a safe Raptarfin, same thing we had yesterday. Was that in yes? The Amalei Shmuel Rav Yehuda, Shinna, you clever one. Sheikh Masnisin v'Toya Basroy. Leave the Mishnah behind and come after me. Reisha Rabbanan, the Sefer Rab Tarfon. So that's the first time thing. Tomorrow we can divide the Mishnah, and tomorrow night, we'll see already a whole bunch of other answers on the Mishnah. It's 9:40 tomorrow.